everybody. I am Jarrett Ross, the Genie Vlogger, and welcome to another Genie Vlogger live stream. Today, I'm just going to be chatting about random stuff, genealogy related, not genealogy related, just stuff I've been up to and possibly answering some questions. Probably not going to go too long today, trying to keep it under an hour because I have more trips to go on. So I'll be going to a conference this coming week in Philly. So that's going to be exciting. So got to make sure I pack and do all of that. So I've started, but yeah, so we'll do our typical start with saying hello to everybody. I see we're starting a little slow today, but I know I'm not really doing anything specific, so I won't be surprised if not many people come in, just a lot of the regulars, the genie heads, as I like to call you all. Julia Joyce, hello. I am doing well. Hope you are as well, Julia. Thank you. Anna, hello from Western New York. Good to have you as always. Genealogy, where the answer to one problem leads to two more. Heard this joke today. Yeah, that is always true. You solve one puzzle, and then all of a sudden you have 2, 3, 4 more new puzzles to solve. So yeah, it's never ending, never ending. Stig, hi from Oslo, Norway. Hello, Stig. Thank you for joining. Wonderful to have you as always. Alan, cheesehead greetings from Madison, Wisconsin. Hello, Alan. Katie Gray, good afternoon from Northeast Ohio. Hello, Katie. Thank you for joining. Tasha Carl from Minnesota. Hello, Tasha. Thank you for joining. We have Drea. Hello. Finally able to hang out on stream again. Yeah, you haven't been on a whole bunch. I think you were on the last one, though. I remember you popping up, or maybe it was the one before that, and I'm just misremembering. But good to have you. Wonderful that you're able to hang out today. Rodney Michalik, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Hopefully I got one of those right. From Cibolo, Texas. I don't know how to pronounce that one either. Hopefully I got that right too. If there's one thing I'm not known for, it's my pronunciation. So sorry if I mispronounced that. Callum Tate, hey, I'm back. Not been here in a while. Yeah, haven't seen you in a while, Callum. Good to have you. Thank you for joining. Alexandra Cruz coming in from Koblenz, Germany. Hi, Alexandra. Thank you for joining as always. Sharon Phillips, hello from New York. Hello, Sharon. Thank you for joining. And we have one of our Twitch contingency, Weeping Scorpion 82. Hi, everyone watching this stream from this side this time around. Yeah, so I stream on both Twitch and YouTube a lot of times now. I used to also do it on Facebook, but yeah, so if you prefer not to be on YouTube and prefer to be on Twitch, that is an option. If you aren't on, or if you're on both platforms, but you're not following me on either, or on one, be sure to follow me on one because it helps me out even if you're not watching there. Sharp Lisa, hello from Southern Ontario, Canada. Hey, Sharp Lisa, thank you for joining. And that's everyone so far today. So yeah, so I guess I'll get into some of what I've been up to. The biggest thing, which I alluded to in the thumbnail, was meeting up with Max Miller and his family to go over the research I've been doing for them for the past year and a half now. Many of you may remember the first video I put out over a year ago now, actually. I think it was July last year. I put out a video on Max's maternal grandmother's line. So I'm going to try to pull it up. Yeah, where's it? There we go. Feed my channel. Okay, can we collapse that? Let's share. Screen, so share there. Okay, cool. I don't know if I'm doing it right. Oh no, I'm not. Here, I'm gonna share it a specific way. Hopefully that one's the right way. There we go. Okay. So yeah, so last year I released this video, Love, Intrigue, and Oysters. And Max then made a video on his own channel about an oyster recipe and some of the history with oysters in the US. And that was based on my research. He talks about that in his video. And so after that, when I was getting further into his family tree, Max had a huge brick wall in his family in the fact that his grandfather had been adopted. And so that was a big question he had. And I'd been looking into that when I first connected with him and started doing all the research. But it was, just have it playing in the background. I don't think you all can hear it, but I'll turn it off because I can hear it. All these ads, so many ads. But basically, he had this huge brick wall in his family tree. And actually, we might be able to see it here. So Robert Paul James, who is his grandfather, was adopted. And so that was a big question for him was, what's that ancestry? And so that was a major thing I started working on. And we ended up doing a lot of different stuff in terms of DNA testing, many family members, and then doing all sorts of research, ordering records, talking to archivists and everything. And so once I started to get things figured out, I decided that it was, it would be interesting to do a video where you could see their reaction. Because I always ask for my guests to do a reaction of some kind to the video I do. Because it's, it's basically, hey, help me out, promote it. And if you do a reaction, that helps a lot. And I thought, what if I did it where instead of asking for them to do a reaction, I do it almost kind of like Finding Your Roots, where I present the information to them and then I weave in their reactions into the final video. So after doing that research, I suggested this idea to Max. He talked to his family. They were down for it. And so then I spent basically the past year just figuring out all sorts of stuff on his family, build it, getting a ton of stuff ready. And just the other week, I went down to Phoenix, Arizona to meet up with Max and his family and show them the information. And so I, wasn't just on his mom's side. So I presented them information on both sides of the family, all the research I had done, which included all sorts of stuff, and even including FOIA requested records. So records literally requested using the Freedom of Information Act. Which was pretty cool process to be able to kind of have a little bit of a view into, thanks to my buddy Alec Ferretti from Reclaim the Records. So if you're not familiar with Reclaim the Records, they're the people that go around and make sure that the government agencies and archives adhere to the actual laws of freedom of information. And if they don't, they take them to court. So yeah, very, very great group. Very, very awesome people. And Alec helped me with this information. Let me see. I haven't looked at chat. Yeah, let's see. Okay. Alexandra, this video is going to be really interesting. I think it's the first one with an adoptee on the channel. Yeah, I think so. Which I've actually wanted to do a case talking about adoptees because I've done so many of those cases. And when I did search angel work, one of the things that I would do is I would, talk to the search or to the, person I'm helping and kind of explain that, I was doing YouTube and I made content. And, once we were done with the process, if they were open to me talking about it on video, that'd be something I'd like to do. But I never had a client who was willing to do that. That was an adoptee case. So this is really, really cool because I get to show some different stuff. But yeah, it was a very, very interesting. We uncovered a lot on all sides of the family. So if here, let's go back a bit. If you saw the thumbnail for today's live, let's make that bigger. You can see that's one of the reactions of Max's family. It's kind of hard. I can't make it really big enough to really see that well because it keeps readjusting. But you can kind of see it. Here, let's we don't need to worry too much about it. But yeah, so went to Phoenix, talked all about all sorts of stuff with the family. We spent like the entire day together. And then once I was done even presenting everything to them, it was like a whole nother few hours of talking about the family history. So the first episode of that, I'm hoping will come out at some point. Hopefully no later than September. I'm trying to get it out as soon as possible. But there's obviously lots of stuff to work on with it. And it's actually going to be a sponsored video. So, with sponsored videos, you have to get approval of everything, before everything's put out. So hopefully you'll be seeing the first episode of that coming out soon. But from everything I shot with them when I was in Phoenix, it's going to end up being like 3 or 4 episodes at least, if not 5 or 6 or something like that. But then at the same time, I will be putting out other episodes on other YouTubers as well throughout. So it'll be a mix of stuff. Plus, I'll be continuing my vlogging type of videos, kind of like what you saw with my trip to Amsterdam. Took a trip up to New Jersey not too long ago. So I plan to do a video about that. I videotaped when I was there. Basically, that was the trip where I went and did metal detecting on my family's old land, or at least what we assume is the old land. We still have to double check the maps and everything, or sometimes it's hard to decipher that stuff when you're looking at a property deed and it's describing this much southwest along this person's property to this road, and then along the you got to really kind of figure it out sometimes. So that was a big one. Let's see. I saw this from Julia. An ancient gene site found my mitochondrial DNA burial sites. I'm related to Cheddar Man. My family did live in Cheddar, Somerset. Very cool. What is Cheddar Man's mitochondrial DNA? Okay, U5. Where'd it go? Oh, wait, no. I2A2. I2A2. Oh, wait, no. That's Y-DNA. That's Y-DNA. Y-DNA. Oh, wait, I realized I don't have this. So, okay. Yeah, Y-DNA. So U5B1. Okay, U5B1. So, okay, interesting. So this is, let's see. How far up is that? Do we have a way to? No, we can't look at it on here. I was gonna look. Sometimes family tree DNA has some stuff where it can add a little idea of how far back that connection is, but with mitochondrial DNA, where there's multiple subgroups of it, I'm guessing you're from one of the subgroups, obviously. So yeah, when did Cheddar Man live? Okay, so 10,000 years old, basically, ish. So, okay. Very cool. Very cool. Old Cinderella, hello from Germany. Thank you for joining. Uploaded my DNA to this site. Sure which site? Okay. I'm you group. Did you do an advanced mitochondrial DNA? Hey, Charlie, good to have you. Thank you for joining. Charlie's one of our wonderful admin mods. So always good to have Charlie. Jose Lopez 94. Am I late? You are not. I've only been streaming for maybe 10, 15 minutes. So yeah, you did miss me talking about some of the stuff I had going on in terms of meeting up with Max Miller and his family. Yeah, I was basically just talking about how I went down to Phoenix to meet up with them, and I wonder if, let me see if I can bring this up. So I'm gonna try to show this. Present, share screen. Okay, I can share that. Sweet. So there we go. So there's a nice clear image of Max Miller and his family. One of their great reactions. So if I remember correctly, this is actually one of the reactions to something for Max's father's side. So it's going to be some good stuff. It's going to be some good stuff. Why is it telling? Oh, it's because I have my VPN on. That's why. It's telling me connection is slightly lowered, and I'm like, what? I have it direct connected in, but of course, forgot to turn off my VPN. Sometimes I need to turn it off because VPNs, it slows my internet down from like 400, 500 megabits per second to like 100 to 200 ish, especially depending on which one I'm going through. So, yeah, by the way, if anyone has any questions or anything, let me know. I mean, I just figured get a stream out today, chat about some fun stuff, nothing serious, just because I'm probably gonna end this before an hour or so total of streaming. I mentioned meeting up with Max, mentioned also a little bit before that going to New Jersey. So that video will come out about my trip to New Jersey to do metal detecting on the family land, which I did have some Instagram posts about that. So yeah. Thank you, Charlie. I'll definitely put that up. Please join our Discord server. If you haven't, lots of cool stuff there. We chat about all sorts of stuff, obviously including genealogy and DNA, and a lot of people helping each other out. We have a very wonderful helping forum. Basically, you post up a request and people help out. But also lots of chatting just about general stuff. I mean, just yesterday we were talking about hip hop and music. So yeah, definitely join. Let's see. Alexandra, if I remember right, you mentioned once that you were working on a family tree for a YouTuber woman with Mexican ancestry. Is this video still coming someday? Yes. So one of the difficulties with doing videos like I do is that even when you have some great stuff to kind of work with, I need to have a story to be able to really create. And while I do have some interesting stuff on her family tree so far, I still need to get a lot more. Unfortunately, because sometimes I have to push things around about, okay, I'm going to do a video about this. I need to focus on this. So I've basically had to focus on other videos, and I haven't been able to kind of get back to that research as much. But yes, you are correct. The person who I am researching is Cynthia Reyes. So she, I believe, lives in Mexico, but she does content about science and chemistry and I think biology, and I'm not 100% sure. All of her stuff is in Spanish. Oh, there we go. Okay, I need to change the screen. But yeah, so this is her channel. So if you speak Spanish, from my, she seems to have a great channel. I've watched a couple of her videos with the subtitles on. It seems good. It's hard to, obviously tell sometimes with the subtitles and all of that. But so I've been researching her family. We've had members of her family do DNA testing as well. So we've got DNA working into it. And, I've been working with that. I've found some interesting stuff. But there's obviously a lot more that I need to work out. So there should be a video coming someday. I have not given up on this in any way. And, you know, I have a lot of YouTubers, honestly, on my backlog of videos to make. So like some, like for Cynical Historian, Joseph Hall Patton, I have like 4 or 5 videos basically that just, you know, I already know what the stories are going to be about. I just need to start writing it out and all that. And I have one of those videos. One of the scripts is like halfway done. I had to focus on the Max stuff because it was really important to have it ready for when I went to see them in Phoenix. So my guess is after the first episode of Max's, or technically the second episode, but the first episode showing their reactions, then I'll probably have a video coming out on Joseph Hall Patton's Ancestry. Then I also have some other ones on Steve Heimler, Jabari Walker, who's the channel From Nothing. So I did, you know, I already did one video about Jabari's family. He does videos about African history. And so he's going to be another one of the YouTubers where I have episodes coming out. So I have a lot of people where, you know, I have so much that I want to get out. It's just, for me, it's a matter of like, I have so much content, but so little capability of getting the content done. Because the only content I can get done consistently are my reactions, in part because I have an editor, and doing reactions is a much easier process for an editor than the videos I do for my main channel, because, you know, trying to explain, okay, here's the record, but you specifically need to focus on this and then highlight this part and then zoom over here and highlight this part. And like, you know, it's something that you can do, but it basically, you end up spending half the time, or I'd end up spending half the time I would editing, writing out a script to then send to an editor. And yeah, it's just, it's one of those balancing acts. The other part being that, you know, my money is limited. You know, I make enough money on here to get by and with my talking and all of that. But, you know, it's basically right now I'm in that portion of, I know I've got to grind it out and build things up, and hopefully I'll eventually reach a point where I can comfortably be able to do all sorts of stuff and build a team and all of that. But yeah, so yes, I guess just going back for those who are kind of just jumping in and like, wait, what's the deal? Yes, this is Cynthia Reyes, will be one of my upcoming guests. Been researching, and if you speak Spanish, check her channel out, subscribe to her. From what I've seen, she's really good. Obviously, I can't get a great understanding. I think she does have some videos in English, because I think she does. I could be wrong. Yeah. So, okay. Let's continue. Oh, yeah. Is that Max's brother on the left? Yes, that is. So let's go back to that. So yes, that's Max's brother right there. That's Max's sister, and that's Max's parents. So you'll get to see all of their reactions in these upcoming videos. Yeah. Hello, Jared. I've been working and almost finished on a video of a deep dive into one of my first great grandparents, his whole history, all the known locations he lived, and even his genealogy. That's awesome to hear. One of the things that I found in terms of genealogy was writing the stories out, and especially figuring out the story of people by using the records and understanding what that means in their life. You know, okay, well, this record means that they moved from here to here. Well, why is that? And then you kind of look into the history and, you know, all that. And so I feel like that's kind of one of those processes that can be very helpful for people to then really get a feel for their family. So, or not just a feel for their family, but like a feel for what they actually lived through. Like, I feel that's one of the reasons why Finding Your Roots is such a great show, is because when they present the information, they present it as the story where you feel the connection to the people. And like, even when it's like, you know, someone from the Mayflower or something, it'll be something where, you know, they talk about the person, they lead into the person, and then they go into their history, and then they reveal the Mayflower thing. And it's like, you feel personally connected to that individual you're talking about before you learn the big historical connection. And now all of a sudden that historical connection has an even closer connection feeling to you because it's like my ancestor that I know their story sort of. Yeah. So yeah, very, very, very cool that you're doing that. And hopefully your video comes out very nicely. Best of luck to you with that. Alan, working today on my province posts and ancestry, Marganin area. Very cool. I think I talked about it in stream not too long ago, but I finally found Polish ancestry for my family. I always suspected it was there. Very common for people with Jewish ancestry to have Polish ancestors somewhere in there. And I had hints of it in the family tree, but I never found it directly. And obviously you can see my map behind me, but basically the places that I found that my family were in were Warsaw and Suwałki. And geez, I need to look back and actually see what the towns are again, because it's I researched that side that I like. Once that breakthrough happened, I researched that side like crazy for a couple of weeks, and then I totally haven't looked back at it in since then. So yeah, I kind of forgot a little bit about what it is. I need to go back to that. Alexandra, I'm going to check her channel. It seems interesting. Spanish is my mother language. Yeah, definitely check it out. Hopefully you enjoy, and then you can even comment and say that I sent you here. So I actually need to get in touch with her, because I want to say it was almost a year ago that I messaged her like, hey, I'm still working on this. So it's been a couple of years I've been working on their tree. So, Mexican genealogy does have a little bit of difficulty with it just because of the limitation of what's been digitized. But her family came from some regions that, from what I could see, actually had decent documentation. So we found a good amount, but there's more that we need to find. So I need to jump back into that research for sure. Yeah, they look a lot alike. Yeah, they really, really do. It's actually not quite as easy to see here, just because Max's brother's kind of leaning back, and he's got the arm raised, and yes, you can see how excited they all are, and they're like, oh my gosh, are you serious? But yeah, when you're in person, it's so funny, because it's like, oh wow, that's like a different Max. So yeah, Max's family was really cool. They were so nice, so welcoming, and just they were awesome. Callum, I'm trying to trace my grandmother's paternal grandfather. Her father was illegitimate. Okay. So your grandmother's father was illegitimate. So interesting. That's definitely going to be something that you might be able to figure out. Obviously DNA is going to be very helpful, but the paper trail can be very helpful too. And when it comes to this kind of research, a big thing that you can do is wherever your grandfather or your great-grandfather was born, your grandmother's father was born, see if you can order the actual original birth certificate, because some states will have multiple birth certificates. So like New York, for a long, long time, it was a huge process to be able to get the original birth certificate. They recently changed the law. That would have been like 4 or 5 years ago they changed the law, so I guess it wasn't that recently, but they changed the law about 4 or 5 years ago in New York. So if it's a New York birth, now you can actually get the original birth certificate. But all the various states can are different. Like Pennsylvania, you can order birth certificates, but in terms of being able to access the index for Pennsylvania, you can only access the birth index up to 1918, I think it is. So 1919 will come out next year, something like that. But yeah, I think I've identified her great-grandparents. They had at least 10 sons. I don't know how to find out which son it is. Well, if they had 10 sons, then what you'd need to do is get a descendant of each one of those sons to do a DNA test until you found one of those descendants who matched you at the expected range, if that, if that son is truly your great grandfather. Because if it's not so basically, if that son, if you find someone who's a descendant of the person that is your great grandfather, then that means that that person is going to be like a, half second cousin to you or whatever. I guess it depends on what the illegitimacy sort of thing is in terms of how those, are those sons half siblings or whatever. But basically you have to see, does it match the expected amount? So, if it's a half second cousin that you're looking for, but then they match well below what you typically would get for a half second cousin, something more along the lines of a third cousin, or maybe a, half third cousin or whatever, depending on the relation, whatever, you should notice a decent difference with that. So let's actually pull up shared Centimorgan project. So there we go. So with you've got self, and then you've got your halves over here. So you're talking about your grandmother's father. So assuming that the person he had the other children with, his other sons with, was not the same person who's the mother of your grandfather, then we're looking at halves. So a half second cousin is about 120 centimorgans on average. But then let's say that it's a more distant relationship, then you're going to notice, while there is a very strong correlation to a half second cousin between a third cousin. So like looking at their histograms, you can see this is kind of the general most common. Obviously 120 centimorgans is the average. And then if we look at third cousin, it's much less on average, usually about, they 73 centimorgans is the average, but you still do have overlap. So it is a little difficult, but basically what you should find is somebody that's going to match at a higher amount. And what's even better is if the son, let's say one of the sons are still alive, well, there's an even bigger difference if they're a half great aunt or uncle versus if they're like a first cousin twice removed, which is what they would be if they were, I think that's about, or wait, no, they'd be a great aunt or uncle, or yeah, sorry, I'm kind of getting confused explaining it, but basically it's just a matter of getting a DNA test from every single one of those sons, because whichever line is the same line you descend from, they will share more DNA on average with you than the lines that are, one step more distant. So hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. Where do I have it? Carmagal, late to the party. Hello from Nebraska. Yeah, a little late to the party. Just about a half hour or so. Although I think I'm only going to be going for maybe another 20 minutes, maybe not even. I don't know. We'll have to see. But thank you for joining. We also have Brian Lewis in the house. Hello, Brian. Thank you for joining. Callum, I have found a third cousin once removed who is related through this family, sharing 95 centimorgans. Yeah, I mean, with 10 sons or however many sons you said that might be your grandfather's father or your grandmother's father, that's a lot of possibilities. And so you kind of need to get a lot of them tested. And basically, hopefully the line that you descend from, once you test it, you'll notice very succinctly, this line matches way more than the others. But yeah, that's one of the reasons why what are the odds trees are so helpful as well, is because you can enter in all of that information of all the matches you find within the family. So if you get, even if you only get 5 or 6 of the descendants of sons, or 5 or 6 descendants of the different sons tested, that's still a lot of information, where putting it in a what are the odds tree, you can at the very least rule out if it's any of those. And then if it is, then you at least can get to the others. Obviously, if it is one of those, then you should hopefully see it too. Jose, I have French ancestry on my dad's side from what he told me one day. I'm thinking about doing an ancestry DNA test sometime. Yeah, you can definitely do that. I know a lot of people will do that stuff looking more for the percentages of the admixtures, and that may be helpful. But with something like French, we know that it's, French is one of those ones where there's so much genetic correlation with all sorts of European groups that, you're probably, it wouldn't be surprising to have ancestors who truly lived in France, maybe even for many generations, and then you don't get any French readings in the DNA test. Doesn't mean you don't have French ancestors necessarily, or ancestors living in France. It's just how the DNA tests read it. But what can be very helpful is the DNA matches, especially depending on how close that French ancestry is. So, your dad says, we have French ancestry. Well, that French ancestry is like your dad's grandparent, which would be your great grandparents. Then, that's something where you'd likely find DNA matches still living in France. Granted, France doesn't allow DNA matching or DNA testing, so you'd have to find someone who had gone somewhere else to test, but was from France or living in France. But basically, you should find people where they have genealogy showing a connection to France. If you don't see it, doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, because it's always a possibility that you just don't have any of your French cousins who've tested. But at the same time, the lack of evidence also doesn't suggest that it is true. It's just a lack of evidence. But yeah, good luck. Hopefully you figure that out. Katie Gray, any suggestions to finding who my 5 times great grandparents are? I can't test parents, unfortunately, and the family I'm looking for is French. Well, when you're talking about 5 times great grandparents, you're talking about getting into the genealogical distance where DNA testing is unlikely to help you unless you can get older generations to test. So 5 times great grandparents is still difficult, because even if your grandparents level or their siblings are alive, you're still looking at their 3rd great grandparents, which is still kind of a distant thing, because you can see, 3rd great grandparents, well, with the people that are going to be your generation, that's 4th cousins. But remember, if it's 3rd great grandparents, that would be your grandparents level testing. So that means that it's their 4th cousin, but their 4th cousins might be dead. That might only be 2nd cousin or 4th cousins once removed, or 4th cousins twice removed that are testing. And so then you're digging into the areas where, average 28 centimorgans, average 22 centimorgans, these histograms showing that most of your matches at this level are going to be well below 60 centimorgans, honestly, well below 50 centimorgans. So it's going to be a very difficult thing for DNA. What you're really going to need to do, if you really want to try to figure this out, is doing either in-depth DNA studies beyond just typical DNA testing. So I'm talking about Y-DNA testing or mitochondrial DNA testing. And then the other thing being the actual genealogy work, but even more looking into what possibilities there are beyond your research capabilities. So that could even include hiring a genealogist in France or whatever. A lot of it will depend. Where is your brick wall? If your brick wall is in America, but you're told that they're from France, well, then you're going to have to find someone in America who might be able to uncover what's the town or region in France they come from. Because if you don't know that, well, you got a lot of issues to deal with, because especially dealing with 5 times great grandparents, you're probably dealing with people living in the 1700s, maybe 1600s. Look at the border changes of France over time since the 1600s and 1700s. There may be areas that were once France that maybe they came from that now is no longer France, or all of those sorts of issues. So that's the main thing, is to focus on the areas where you do have confidence of what is there, and then expanding into fan research. So that's very difficult, because, if your brick wall's 4 times great grandparents, it's very difficult for a lot of people to get back that far. for a lot of people, 4 times great grandparents are people that are born in the 1700s and likely died early 1800s to even mid 1800s. So decently far back. And then knowing enough about them to be able to understand their family connections, neighbors, associates, people they do business with, and other ways where you might be able to find records that aren't typical genealogy records, but something that may uncover interesting information on your family. So yeah, lots of ways to go about it, but it's So my brick wall is in New York, but it looks like my 4 times great was born in France. Just don't know where. So yeah, just like I said, you're gonna have to then find, whatever area in New York they're living, you're gonna have to figure out what sort of records are available there that you might actually be able to confidently correlate to your ancestor that will give a hint of where they came from in France. So, I mean, with New York, you are dealing with that possibility of finding it, probate records, notarial records, business records, basically learn the story of your 4 times great grandfather as best possible. And once you do that, you can possibly understand other places to look. Did he go to a university? Maybe the university has records on it. Did he work for a company that maybe those company records are available? Maybe he did something that there's a historical society tied to it. Was he a Freemason? Was he a part of any other fraternal organizations? Anything like that. And then also looking at what sorts of archives, libraries, repositories, all sorts of things, museums even, that may have items related to your ancestor or information related to your ancestor that you just don't know about. And this is where you really uncover stories too. So at that distance as well, in New York, a 4 times great grandfather, it's possible you'll find newspaper clippings about them. So also looking into newspapers, and then as well, just getting into, I guess, a lot of the advanced genealogy. I mean, that's kind of what you're dealing with. You're dealing with a time where there are records available, but it's not like once you get into the mid to late 1800s, there's a big change in how records are done largely across, I guess, most of the genealogy or most of the records for a lot of the Western world, I guess you could say. A lot of it's starting in the early 1800s, especially with Napoleon's conquest. But all over the place, you start to see a lot of the standardization happening for civil records and other records all across the world. So like with census records in the US, in the UK, and elsewhere, the revision lists out in Eastern Europe and the Russian Empire and all of that, the various different census records and population registers in all of the different countries start to kind of standardize and offer a lot more information as well. So, yeah. Alexandra, it's difficult to find good matches in France because they do not allow DNA testing for genealogy purposes, although I could find some distant French matches in my heritage. Yeah, I don't know the exact deal with the legal status of it, but my understanding is basically it's illegal to order a DNA test and take it in France. But at the same time, I don't think it's illegal to access the DNA website. So people who are French can go and get a DNA test elsewhere and get it done. But obviously for many living in France, it's probably not as big enough of a deal for them to want to do that as it is elsewhere. So if it's not as easy to do, a lot fewer people are going to do it. So yeah, a lot worse matches. But in my experience, the most matches I've ever found where they still live in France, or at least were born in France, are on my heritage. But that's also kind of largely across a lot of Europe, especially non-English Europe and especially Eastern Europe. So a lot of the Slavic areas. So even, Baltic and Balkan and all of that. Yeah. Okay. So, oof, gonna have to do a big drive up to Philly after I get all done packing and everything. So that's gonna be fun. Yeah. So Any questions from anybody? So honestly, might not be a bad time to end it soon. Everything's slowing down on the questions anyway. So close that. Yeah, lots of stuff I've got planned for coming up, and hopefully all the work I'm putting into all of this will work out, and everyone will enjoy the content that I do, and they'll grow far and wide. So, Dan, anything new and important coming from the DNA testing companies? Not anything super new. Family Tree DNA made a big deal about something they were doing with updating their Y-DNA results and some of the trees they have available in the Big Y. But from what I remember looking through it, and I think I even talked to a couple of my buddies who do a lot of work in Y chromosome testing, and it was kind of like, yeah, it's not really that much. It just kind of makes it a little bit easier to interpret, but I don't know. Beyond that, it's just a matter of waiting for a lot of the MyHeritage stuff that they announced at Roots Tech this year to roll out. So, I think the biggest thing for them is the admixture update, because that's the thing everybody talks about. But I think one of the more interesting things that I wanted to, I'm very curious to see how they do it, is that they're going to do artifact testing. That was one of the things they announced at Roots Tech. Let's see if I can pull something about that up. Artifact testing. Right here. But at the current moment, there's only 2 companies who do artifact testing, or at least that I understand do artifact testing for the direct-to-consumer market. I'm sure that there are private laboratories you may be able to find who are willing to do artifact testing. But for those who aren't familiar with artifact testing, that is where you're taking an actual item that you believe has your ancestors' DNA on it. Why can't I find this? Did I imagine it? I could have sworn MyHeritage said that they were doing artifact testing. But basically, artifact testing is where you're taking stuff like maybe your grandmother had a hairbrush, or maybe you still have her dentures, or a toothbrush, or a wig, or maybe just something that would have their DNA. And a big thing that a lot of people will use is our envelopes and letters, because if your grandmother sent a letter and there's a stamp on it, supposedly she very well may have licked the stamp. Just pull up the other sites. Maybe I was imagining it, and maybe MyHeritage isn't doing that. But here's one of the sites, To the Letter DNA. They've been around for a while. I wouldn't be surprised if you've heard of them, Dan. I know I've seen you commenting on my videos for a while now. So To the Letter DNA, Keepsake DNA is another one, which Keepsake DNA is owned by a company called Intermountain Forensics, which, interestingly enough, was just bought by the company I used to work for as their lead investigative genetic genealogist, and that's DNA Labs International. So this is Keepsake DNA by Intermountain Forensics, but Intermountain Forensics, DNA Labs International. Yeah, here we go. Here's a news article. So DNA Labs acquires Intermountain Forensics Laboratory, which, I think a big part of that is that Intermountain Forensics had whole genome sequencing up online. So very interesting. Yeah, it was cool to see. It's stuff like this that kind of does make me like miss a little bit of working, at DNA Labs International and working in the industry, and just having all of this new stuff constantly happening and coming online. And I was very lucky in being able to work in the intelligence stuff, intelligence being the newest technology for DNA testing. But yeah, so back to basically what I was really mainly getting at is that I thought MyHeritage had announced that they were doing artifact testing, although now that I'm like doing a Google search for it, for some reason I'm seeing nothing about it. But yeah, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Am I wrong? I don't know. I'll have to look into that. Why did I think they were doing that? I don't know. Maybe it was just like word of mouth, people telling me. So, that's one of the things too. When you go to all these conferences and stuff, you end up talking to hundreds of people who are all working in various capacities in the industry, and they all hear different things, and you kind of hear murmurs of stuff here and there, and then it's like sometimes you forget what was told to me, as just like oh, I heard this, versus like, hey, we announced it on stage. So MyHeritage had a lot they announced, but yeah, nothing otherwise super new, I think. Callum, my parents and I took my grandmother down to Cornwall, England to visit some of her closest relatives who she hasn't seen in years. Very cool. I've been learning a lot about Cornwall through some recent research. So yeah, Cornwall is such an interesting area, and until I started researching it, I never realized how unique it is, I guess, amongst everything. Why is my internet showing low? Why are you telling me Wi-Fi? I'm direct linked in, buddy. I'm direct linked in. Streamlabs, it's crazy. Yeah. Julie Joyce, I'm watching a lot of your back catalog on YouTube. Very interesting. Awesome. Well, hopefully, once you get pretty far back, you won't think too much of it. You'll get to see the advancements I've made as a YouTuber, because I've watched some of my old videos and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so cringy. But I was also, when I first started doing YouTube, I had kind of two aims. One, I wanted to make it vlog like. That's why I called myself Genie Vlogger. So like the big picture in my mind was I was going to be like the Casey Neistat of genealogy. So if you're not familiar with Casey Neistat, he's been doing YouTube vlogs for many years, and kind of became like the guy for that. And so that was my idea. So if you watch a lot of my early videos, it'll be like me doing random stuff and then getting into the thing later, which is how his videos were. So it was always like a mixture of getting to know my personality, but also talking genealogy. But I was also trying to, at that time, do the laid back, like, I'm just, everybody hang out with me sort of guy. And what it ends up coming off as on video is it makes it look like I'm like either super stoned or like ridiculously tired, because I'm just like, so yeah, today we're going to talk about genealogy, and just, but like, I don't know. So a lot of my early videos, it's just like I watch and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy that I've improved. So crazy to think I actually just hit 7 years this past June. 7 years on YouTube. So yeah. Karma, just when I finally get the wide testing done on my dad, they're going over to MyHeritage. Wait, what do you mean they're going over? Just when I finally get the Y testing done on my dad, they're going over. Wait, what? I'm not sure what you're talking about. Is Family Tree DNA moving their Y DNA testing or something? I mean, I know about the family tree stuff with MyHeritage and Family Tree DNA. Is that what you're talking about? Or oh, okay, the family tree. Okay, yeah. I was thinking that might be what you're talking about, but the way it was worded, it kind of just sounds, just when I finally get the Y testing done, they move it over to MyHeritage. So that's why I was like, wait, what? They're doing what now? Yeah. Alexandra, yes, I remember that video of MyHeritage and Roots Tech. They took the DNA from an envelope. I think they're still not offering to the public. Okay, so I'm not crazy. So yeah, I was pretty sure that they were doing that. Yeah, there was basically this past year at Roots Tech, MyHeritage just was like machine gun announcing everything. Like, we're announcing this and we're announcing this and like announcing this. It was like they announced their old news thing. They announced the artifact testing. They announced their new like massive membership they're going to roll out where you can like you pay one membership fee and it covers MyHeritage and Genie and other stuff. They also announced the admixture update. And then I feel like there was other stuff they were announcing, but it was just like announcement after announcement after announcement. So yeah, lots of stuff. So I'm glad you said that because I was like kind of going crazy Googling it. Like I was thinking, sure, something's gonna pop up, right? Okay, let's see. I'll answer a question. Berivar, I have a match 385 centimorgans on 10 segments. Longest at 60 centimorgans. So this is a very good match. We're both stumped and can't work it. Our closest connection we found makes his seventh cousins. Could this just be a very extreme case of endogamy? It possibly could be, but the thing about endogamy is when we call, or at least when I call something an endogamous match, what I'm saying is that the amount of DNA we're sharing is significantly improved because we're related in a lot of ways. For your endogamy to show like this would be the equivalent of the endogamy I've seen from like Pacific Islanders, which is like on the extreme end. So it certainly is possible that this is endogamy, but at this level, I highly doubt it. I think we've interacted before, and based on the name, I'm guessing coming from a Jewish ancestry. If I'm wrong, let me know. So if it's that kind of endogamy, when you're looking at this type of a match, 385 centimorgans across 10 segments, which is an average of 38.5, and then a longest segment of 60 centimorgans, even though you're finding that seventh cousin match, that 60 centimorgan segment more than anything is indicating that there must be some other more recent ancestry. I mean, when we see 40 centimorgan longest segments, that's like, oh, this is really good. So 60 centimorgans is like, okay, there's got to be something going on. And the way that I've kind of started to like to word stuff, do I still have it up here? Yeah, I do. Okay. The way I've kind of like to word stuff when it comes to a lot of this is that when it comes to endogamy for like average endogamy or lower. So when I say average endogamy, Jewish endogamy and French Canadian endogamy are probably kind of the most similar in that being the average. Endogamy that's more extreme than that starts with like Cajun and Creole populations who do have pretty hard endogamy. There's a little bit more than what you see with Jewish and French Canadian. And what I mean by that is a little bit more, meaning that on average, you see you're matching everybody at just a tad more than typical. Then above kind of Cajun Creole or kind of on the same level, you're also kind of getting some of those Puerto Rican and other islander populations in the Caribbean, and maybe some other islands and stuff. And then Pacific Islanders really kind of at the extreme end. But for everything that's kind of like Jewish endogamy, French Canadian endogamy, colonial American endogamy, a lot of other sort of kind of the lighter endogamies in a sense, once you see matches getting like above 300 centimorgans or so, you start to get in line much more with what you see in these actual shared centimorgan charts. So, could the actual total amount of DNA you share be a little bit higher than otherwise expected? It's possible, but I don't think it'd be that much. I would still expect this match to be maybe, let's say, somewhere at the lowest 300 centimorgan match, where you can compare it here. So there's a lot that you can look into. And, with all that said, it is certainly possible that it is endogamy. And maybe this is just even if you're coming from Jewish ancestry, a very extreme version of what's happening. And just, the term that a lot of people like to use, sticky segments, basically just meaning that on two lines of a family, there was one segment where both lines kept inheriting that segment, very little bit of that unchanged. It's not actually a sticky segment because anything's going on where the segment's sticky or anything. It's just a term used. What it just really is just the randomness of recombination made it so that on both those lines, you were getting that segment continuously being inherited. So yeah, could be an extreme case. I kind of doubt it. I really, with that longest segment, 60 centimorgans, that's what's really making me doubt it. That's the part that would make it more extreme than anything. Because even if you cut that longest segment in half as 30 centimorgans, that's still in the high confidence region for Jewish endogamy. So, all right, yeah. Jose, apparently I have family in Guam, according to my sister's discovery through my heritage on Earth Day this year. Wish I could go. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, one thing I'd suggest is possibly, looking at what they're saying is showing that you have, ancestry in Guam. Not saying that your sisters are wrong, but just from my experience dealing with hundreds of people interpreting their results incorrectly, but being very confident about it. It's one of those things where, if they're, apparently I have family in Guam, I mean, if it's DNA matches and they're living in Guam, yeah, definitely have it. But, I've seen some people where they read some of these lists and then they're like, oh, that means I have ancestry there. I have cousins there. And it doesn't, it means maybe, or, correlations or things like that. Yeah. So, yeah, I see some other folks kind of talking back and forth, but I think at that point, been going for just over an hour, so I should probably get going because I need to get packed up and ready and eat dinner and do all the stuff, and then later tonight I'll be heading off to Philly. So yeah, so thank you everybody for joining the stream today. I know it was kind of just all over the place, nothing super specific. But hopefully fun and enjoyable, and a little bit of a sneak peek as to all the stuff or what I had going on with going to Phoenix and meeting up with Max Miller and his family. But yeah, I'll be doing a live stream from the conference in Philly. I don't know exactly what day it'll be. I will be doing two live streams actually. One of the live streams I'll be doing through a Facebook page that's not my own. It'll be a Facebook page for the overarching group that runs the conference, kind of. And then I'll also be doing my own live stream. I think I'll probably do it through the main channel, but I'll just do like a live stream, kind of like I did at Roots Tech, walk around the expo hall, kind of talk about, what's going on at the conference and just that sort of stuff. So keep your eye out for that. It'll happen some point next week. My guess is it'll either happen Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, one of those days. And then I don't know if I'll do a reaction live stream next week, but there is a new reaction coming out on Monday, which I'm actually very much looking forward to because it's to a recently viral video. That video by Marcus Gallo, "You Don't Descend from All Your Ancestors." So did a reaction to that, and that gave me the ability to talk about a lot of in-depth genetic genealogy stuff like visual phasing and DNA painting, and kind of like, here's why we know what he's showing on screen is what actually is true. So yeah, so awesome, everybody. Thank you so much. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your Friday, rest of your weekend, and I'll see you early next week. So I am Jarrett Ross, the Genie Vlogger, and I'm out. Bye.